Ron DeSantis has obviously announced now his 2024 presidential campaign. And one of the parts of his campaign that is really baffling people, or something I've been talking about as well, is the fact that it doesn't seem clear that he has a lane. It doesn't seem clear he has the ability to take enough of the GOP support away from Trump to win the primary, because he's branded himself as kind of a Trump 2.0 and kind of MAGA guy who has less baggage and can appeal a little bit more to more traditional Republicans because of the way that he presents himself, but still MAGA, still extreme, all of that. And so how are you going to take away, as I've said, MAGA from the creator of MAGA, Trump? Now, I always want to note in these types of segments, we analyze, of course, from the sidelines. We talk, okay, this person, that person, can they take support? All of it should be underlined by the fact that we would not want DeSantis or Trump to be president. They would both be awful. So when I say Trump's going to destroy DeSantis, it's not celebratory, but it's also not celebratory, because DeSantis getting destroyed, or if Trump were to get destroyed, all of that can be fine to see as long as either of them loses in the general election. Always important to note that. Well, it seems that DeSantis is kind of narrowing in on what his line is going to be. What will be one of the ways he sets himself apart from Trump. And I've talked about in the past how he thinks, or it appears that he thinks, the best way to take MAGA from Trump is to portray himself as even more extreme on some issues, even more to the right of Trump on some issues. One of them is abortion, where DeSantis signed the 6-week abortion ban in the state of Florida into law, and criticized Trump for not saying that he necessarily, not explicitly voicing his support for that 6-week abortion ban. Well, the other thing that I have to show here for you today is on COVID. DeSantis is now taking the line that Trump was pro shutdowns. He was pro Fauci. And I fought Fauci and Fauciism. And I didn't do any precautions. Hoorah. And so I'll give you some examples of that, and then we'll discuss this a little bit more. First, this is from the Ben Shapiro show, a recent interview, and DeSantis says this.
But if he thinks Cuomo handled it better, that's an indication if something like this were to happen again, he would double down and do what he did in March of 2020. That was a difficult situation. We didn't have all the facts, and people can kind of understand, if you did things that may not have worked out. But we all have to sit here today in 2023, look back at March of 2020 and say Fauciism was wrong. Fauciism was destructive. Fauciism has set us on this path with the CARES Act and the Fed.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So Fauciism is the new term. And then here's another example from another recent interview.
I think he did great for 3 years, but when he turned the country over to Fauci in March of 2020, that destroyed millions of people's lives. And in Florida, we were one of the few that stood up, cut against the grain.
So that's going to be the line from DeSantis, that Trump turned over the country to Fauci and he never would have done such a thing, which, do you remember that? You remember how Trump just took the advice of Fauci every step of the way? It's absurd. But I guess DeSantis is saying he would have taken even less advice from medical experts during a pandemic. Now, were incorrect decisions made? Of course. Was Fauci wrong on things? Yeah. But that's what happens in an unprecedented moment. And it doesn't mean that the guidelines we should be taking, or it doesn't mean we shouldn't be taking the guidelines from those who have the best shot of getting it right because they're the experts in the field. And then in retrospect, we can analyze what went wrong, what went right. But if we had taken the advice of people like DeSantis, it would have been even more disastrous. And that's why it was so mishandled by Trump, because in large part, he did go up against Fauci. He did, especially in his rhetoric, but also in his actions, decide not to go with the advice of medical experts. And we saw the disaster that caused. And I want to make sure, and then I'll get to another thing on this talking point from DeSantis, but I want to make sure we don't forget, as ABC News writes, for red and blue America, a glaring divide in COVID-19 death rates persists 2 years later. This is from 2022. Post-vaccine death rates in red states were 38% higher than in blue states. And it's important to look at that because it gives you a sense of the political ideology, how that affected people's decision to get the vaccine. And so then after the vaccine was available, 38% higher, based on this analysis, in red states compared to blue states, the COVID death rate, almost 40%. That is significant. Why? In large part because of the ideology people bought into, and a lot of them didn't take the vaccine because of misinformation that was floating around, and because of the way that many people were encouraged not to take this seriously. And so it's not correct to say that if we had all just completely ignored the advice of medical experts, we would have been way better off. Again, mistakes were made, yes, and lives were hurt by mistakes that were made, yes. But if we had gone the direction of some of these MAGA Republicans and just completely ignoring the pandemic and not taking the proper protocols, not taking it all seriously, not taking the vaccine, it would have been so much worse. And so the fact that DeSantis is saying, I would have been even less responsible on this than Trump if I were president, is pretty horrible. Then here's this from the DeSantis War Room Twitter account, where they're showing a compilation of Trump moments, I guess saying, look, he said some things about taking it seriously, and that's terrible.
We did the right thing. We closed the country down. Could have kept it open. And I could have done what some countries are doing. I had to shut it down, and we did the right thing. I thought of keeping it open. And we did just the right thing. We closed it down. And a group of very smart people walk in and say, sir, we have to close it. And we did the right thing. They can't do anything without the approval of the President of the United States.
So that's going to be it. DeSantis is going to really go after Trump on that. We're seeing that kind of plan be rolled out, and it'll be interesting to see how the MAGA base interacts with that information, because they are really against taking any of these things seriously, against all of the protocols that were encouraged and put in place, but they also love Trump so much, and often it's not about policy, it's about personality. It's going to be a really interesting primary to observe, and my prediction stands that Trump will trounce DeSantis, but it'll be fun to watch for sure. On this, DeSantis is fundraising a lot. The recount on Twitter noted, and then we'll watch this clip, that Governor Ron DeSantis raised $8.2 million for his campaign in the first 24 hours. That tops Joe Biden's previous $6.3 million 24-hour record set in 2019. And then take a look at this.
Well, he raised a lot of money. He raised $8.2 million in the first 24 hours after announcing. That's online contributions and that donor summit that he had down in Miami. And this is just pure enthusiasm because it's historic. The who tops the previous record? That was Joe Biden. In the first 24 hours, he raised $6.3 million in 2019. So
he definitely is going to have a lot of cash on hand. But I think the question is, will any amount of cash be able to go up against a cult that has developed around Trump, and the strength that comes along with, not the strength in morality or anything like that, but the strength in a voter base that comes along with just how supported Trump is by a certain part of the GOP. Last thing we'll touch on, just while we're on the subject of DeSantis, this is from the Washington Post. DeSantis says if elected president, he'd consider pardons for January 6 offenders. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said Thursday that if elected president, he would consider pardoning some of those convicted on charges related to the deadly January 6, 2021 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. And that is yet another reminder of the fact that when you're in a party that is so MAGA, you can't do anything other than, if you want to win over a part of that base, go along with a lot of the MAGA ideas, is that the January 6 defendants have been treated so poorly and they're political prisoners. So DeSantis is leaving his options open on that, when in reality, any person of correct principles and any person who cares about a democracy would, of course, want those who attacked the Capitol in an attempt to prevent a peaceful transition of power to be held accountable for that under the law. But DeSantis has to keep trying to walk that line of being different than Trump, but something that MAGA could buy into, and it's likely not going to work. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get access to the exclusive members only bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That is lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. And there's a link in the description.